Hey, everybody.
Welcome to the Maddog and Pino NFL review. Two drinking buddies shooting the shit about the NFL.
How you doing tonight, Pino?
Pino's all right. Even the losers get lucky sometime.
They watch the games, break it down for you, and deliver all you need to know from the weekend's action.
That means there will take about 16 games,
Yeah.
right? So half of them lost, right?
Yeah.
So 32 divided by 2, but
60.
14 teams have a loss.
What?
Die-hard fan? You'll get all the in-depth analysis behind the scores.
Devontae Adams had 175 yards last week. Well, the other guy, Nico Collins, had 107 yards this week.
Check out the big brain on Brett.
Or just a fan of the NFL spectacle? You'll get all the quirks, follies, and absurd moments from each weekend's action.
If he took a shotgun snap, by the time he caught it, he could smell the Starbucks on Micah Parsons' breath.
We got the shit kicked out of us from the moment they walked out of the tunnel.
So, join us now for the insights, laughs, and chaos that is the Maddog and Pino NFL review. Now your hosts,
Everybody, and welcome to the Super Wildcard edition of the Maddog and Pino NFL review. Welcome for all our new listeners and our relaunched artwork and professional intro. And, you know, it's we're stepping up our game. We've been telling you guys that all year. We're going to do it. What do you think, Pino?
I was going to say, like, where do you hear this intro? But then I realized by the time they get to this point,
Yeah.
the intro will have already played,
Yeah,
right?
will,
Because the intro plays before we start talking.
Exactly.
All right. Yeah. Happy playoffs. Happy wild card weekend. We had 2 games for 3 consecutive days.
Exactly. So
Thank God we had the holiday.
That's why they called it Super Wildcard Weekend, I guess.
Right? Like, if we didn't have the holiday on Monday, what would they have done? Like, played a 1:30 Eastern Pacific time NFL game while everyone was working?
Exactly. I guess so, man.
Yeah,
But-
what are you going to do?
All right. So at the end of every season, you know, the ownership comes out and reassures everyone, or doesn't, one way or the other. I just want to calm all our listeners that ownership has come out and said that Pino and I will be back for another year. So we got ownership's blessing for one more year at least.
Yeah, like we had that meeting. It was a 2-hour meeting. Like they were a little disappointed in how our last deal went.
Exactly.
And like I went for the new playoff podcast. I went and got the old style Pinot haircut. There's a lot less hair for those of you out there these days down at the Bardo Salon in Manhattan Beach. Big supporters of the Maddog and Pino show. They all want to know where to find the newly relaunched
It's everywhere you can find
podcast.
podcasts.
Well, that's what I
everybody.
told them. But I said I'm going to send the links, and we better see a little uptick in some subscriptions. Lisa
Especially-
Rossini, her husband Eric, they better fire us up.
All right. So before we get into the games, which are all interesting, I would say, and all in each of their different ways. So we, you know, at the end of the season, I was joking at the outset, but yeah, ownership sits down with the coaching staff as they get eliminated, and you know, the coaching carousel begins. And we talked a lot about this last podcast, probably the last couple, but just to recap, you know, three coaches got fired in season: Carolina with Frank Reich, Las Vegas with McDaniels, and the Chargers with Staley. And then as soon as the season was over, this all was covered in the last podcast, but just as a recap, Washington fired Rivera, Atlanta fired Artie Smith, and somewhat surprisingly, Tennessee fired Mike Vrabel, and Seattle fired Pete Carroll. And then right after our podcast last week, the biggest news in the coaching carousel, New England and Belichick and Kraft sat down and decided to, I think as we've speculated, I think others were thinking he would stay, but decided to mutually part ways. So
Right. They had an amicable divorce.
Exactly.
Or nesting.
Exactly.
Or whatever they call that shit.
Can you imagine Bill Belichick nesting? You get Mac Jones this weekend.
So right now there's 6 teams that got some guy like they're out ordering scissors off Amazon to cut up hoodies.
Exactly. But you know, so and then I guess after this weekend we'll get into the games. But there were some somewhat surprises, or at least confirmations of people that weren't leaving. So Mike McCarthy, shockingly, at least on the surface, you can get into that later, but shockingly on the surface retained his job after 3 straight 1-and-outs. Actually, I think they did win a playoff game somewhere in that stretch, but and then Mike Tomlin, who when asked in his post-game press
That was
conference asked, he wouldn't even let the reporter get the question out of her mouth, and he just walked off. But he now says he's back and waiting for an extension from the Steelers, which I'm sure will be forthcoming. And then the shoe.
I think he's also waiting for a quarterback.
Yeah. Well, aren't we all? And then the shoe that's possibly still going to drop is Sirianni.
I was just going to ask you, did he get fired yet? Did he get fired as of what time? Where are we at now?
We're at
5:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
Exactly.
January 18th.
But there's a lot of speculation in Philadelphia that he may not be long for the world. And I don't know, given their collapse, it's a legitimate question, right? I mean, they lost 7 out of their last 8 games or something like that.
Yeah, they were 10-1.
Yeah.
And their last 2 games, they got blown out by the Giants, who are horrible.
Right.
And then they quit in a playoff game.
Yeah, they definitely quit, and we can get into that.
Yeah.
But so this is probably, I guess it's interesting every year, but there's 8 openings, but the coaches that are available, if you throw Harbaugh into that mix, who's meeting with everybody as well, it's like, real. And if Carroll actually starts interviewing, that's like real Hall of Fame coaches that are like just ready to Hall of Fame or borderline good to / great coaches that are available. So it's kind of interesting.
But it's all anti-Rooney Rule.
Right.
Right. Like based on that pool of coaches.
Yep. That's
right.
a fair point.
And so that's why I think Belichick has had a second interview with Artie Blank, not Artie Smith. Artie Blank still has the mustache. And I think he had his second interview today, maybe, potentially. I think lined up for tomorrow.
I think it's over the weekend, but
they can't, no one can do anything until next week, right? Because they could interview coaches over Zoom that are currently employed.
Yeah.
But it's not until
yeah, but they could satisfy the Rooney Rule without that, right? They
don't they have to have it has to be in person.
I know, but my point is they can interview someone of minority in person now.
Correct.
Right? So,
and Robert Kraft already checked the Rooney Rule box by hiring Gerard Mayo.
Yeah, he did.
Right.
Which, you know what, I got to give, the Patriots, as much as I despise them, are a well-run organization. They actually kept, they did it the right way. He was a coach in waiting anyway. He probably would have got a job last year, but they kind of prevented that from happening probably.
They had a succession plan.
Yeah, with a little bit of yeah, exactly.
Do you think Gerard Mayo went into the office and was like, I'm the oldest boy. I'm the oldest boy.
Here's all my Emmys to prove it.
Like who was Romulus in that scenario?
Exactly.
One of Belichick's kids?
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure he's out of a job until his dad finds another one.
Right. There's 2 of them on that staff. I didn't realize that.
I didn't realize that. So anyway, lots to transpire over the next weeks, months in terms of the coaching carousel. But I don't know. Do you have anything more to add on that
The
topic?
only other thing that, everything else I have is we'll go into the games, but from an overview kind of thing.
No, I mean on the coaching carousel. I have one other thing to talk about.
Other than I fully expect Sirianni to get fired.
I think so.
And it's not unheard of there because they fired Doug Peterson after 3 years. And he won a Super Bowl.
Yeah, you're right.
And that collapse, it almost shows how protected he was by those 2 coordinators last year.
You know what? Yeah, I totally agree.
And it couldn't happen to a nicer guy because he's such a dick on the sidelines.
Not only on the sidelines in his interview and his press conferences.
But last year, with his own, it's like you or I on it's like, woo,
exactly.
Taunting everybody.
Exactly.
So it would be funny to see him get shit canned.
So here's the thing, and I'll ask this of you because it's near and dear to your heart. You got to be, especially if they get rid of Sirianni, you got to be like, or I guess better yet, almost keep him. You got to be loving being the NFC East. I'm like, Jesus, there's so much I don't know, acceptance of mediocrity if they keep both of those guys. Exactly. Yeah.
So, that's why I think for the last 75 years, a different team wins the division.
Right. You're right. So that's a coaching carousel. The only other opening comment I had, and we can get into it. It's obviously related to the games, but this time of year the weather starts getting bad, and I guess I remember weather being part of the story. It always is.
You grew up in that weather.
In some level, yeah. But so here's the thing. All right. So first of all, Miami played in Kansas City. It was the 4th coldest game ever. And, it was a lot, gave them storylines in the game and all of that. So there's a lot of coverage of that. And, both teams went out there and, did fine in the elements. Kansas City more than Miami, but they dealt with it. And then Buffalo Steelers game was scheduled for Sunday, and there was a blizzard, and
There a little bit of snow.
there was a little snow and a little wind, and they postponed the game to Monday. So, as you point out, I grew up in Buffalo, and I never remember the weather canceling or postponing a game. And, I remember going, I didn't go to many games, but going to games that were not the most pleasant of circumstances to sit in the stands to watch.
Right.
So I looked it up. Has a game ever in Buffalo been postponed due to weather? And the answer is no.
Do a little research.
Exactly.
Library of Congress or
there was a bunch of them.
That old Encyclopedia Britannica set?
Exactly. There was a bunch of them that were canceled for COVID and for lockouts and strikes and so forth. But the only one that was ever impacted by the weather was actually fairly recent. I think a couple years ago, the game got moved to Detroit. Do you remember that?
Yes. Yeah. Because and again, that was snow, right?
Right.
That's when the Buffalo fans were like shoveling out the driveways of the players so they could get to the airport, right?
Exactly.
Well, I wonder in the reason we could probably, if we collaborated, I would like to know if there's ever been a game where they put out the Bills being put out a general notice to fans saying,
right,
$20 an hour if you come help us shovel the stadium out, right? Because that's what they did.
Yeah, they did. I mean, it was good. The fans were in there without their shirts on, clearing snow and everything. Did you see
the video of the fan?
It was every fan. If you watch,
but the fan they weren't shoveling. They were trying to walk to their seats, and literally the snow was up to it was on top of their knees,
mid thigh, exactly. And so when all that was starting to be rumored or whatever, I was like, all right. The Bills are pussies, man. Play in the weather, man.
It was in Pittsburgh they'd have played that game.
Exactly. So anyway, it did get me a little like riled up when I'm like, all right. So because the weather is a great equalizer. Steelers were obviously not the better roster, the better team.
Totally fucked up your Sunday plans.
Exactly.
And your Monday plans for that matter.
Exactly. But then I saw what it looked like, and I'm like, yeah, maybe they're right.
Right. You had to be on the phone in New York, to God only knows how many different establishments. Hi, this is Maddog. Can we move that Sunday reservation? Can we move the Monday reservation to Sunday? What do you mean you're full? Steelers aren't playing.
So yeah, I guess it was for fan safety, not player safety, that they moved it. But that's all I had for opening remarks. We can get into the game.
I have one more.
All right.
How about the news about Bobby Irsay?
Oh yeah.
In fact, he OD'd in December.
Is that? I knew they found him unresponsive. I didn't realize it was.
Yeah. So I don't know what is that drug, like Narcan or
Narcan? I think is to prevent you from.
Okay, maybe it's Felcon. I don't know what it is. I'm not that. I'll say this for the public audience. I'm not that heavily involved, so I really don't know. But when they showed up, they had to administer whatever they had
Narcan. They had to administer
prevents an opioid overdose.
I did not know that. It was strange. I did read something where they said none of the reports have mentioned his former substance abuse. So I guess
I read he's been in rehab 15 times.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And then when they announced that. He had been found or he was in the hospital or whatever.
Yeah.
The part of the message was everybody was bummed because his band had to cancel the show.
I was going to say the same thing. Yeah.
I got to see that band.
And by the way, it was 4 days later. We're sorry to say, Jim Irsay will not be attending the concert.
You know what I want to see? Who's the guy that owns Dolan, right? James Dolan?
Yeah.
Who owns the Madison Square Garden Knicks Rangers?
Yep.
He has a band as well.
Yes.
I want to see his band. I want to see Battle of the Bands. Irsay and Jimmy Dolan's crew.
I'll never forget this, man. I had the pleasure, I guess, of meeting Paul Allen once, who kind of was my hero on the surface level, in the sense of he made a shit ton of money in Microsoft, and then he bought the Portland Trailblazers, he bought the Seahawks, he funded and opened the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I
didn't know he did the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame,
and he was in a band.
Wait, what?
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe these billionaire owners get so bored and they're just like, yeah, I got to play in a band now.
Man, if they ever saw Better Late Than Never, I'd have to leave this podcast. But yeah, I just found that interesting.
Yeah, and no,
I don't know what the NFL's gonna like when you got an owner who's like ODing.
Yeah,
right. I think it's probably less than 2 years ago where he was like passed out in his car on the side of the road.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, and then remember he was the one that was well, he was saying get rid of Kraft or something. He was like publicly like way out.
No,
there.
he was way over his like Snyder really pissed him off.
Right. That's
Snyder.
right. It was Dan Snyder. That's right. Well, he's might have had a point there.
You talk about like trying to deflect. Like, hey,
don't look here.
There's a shiny object right over there. Go check that out.
Oh man,
he was pouty.
All right, you want to get in the games?
Mm-hmm.
All right, we'll just do this in what turned out to be chronological order. So the first game up of Super Wildcard weekend was the Browns 14 at the Texans 45. I mean, the popular pick amongst the experts was the Browns defense, Joe Flacco,
right?
More, the Texans are a young team, just they're ahead of schedule, and basically the Texans don't stand any chance. But no one told C.J. Stroud that, and no one told DeMarco Ryans that, and they took it to the Browns. I mean, it was a decent game for like a quarter and a half, maybe, and it was kind of back and forth. So there was the Browns literally played no defense the whole game. In fact, it could have been, I think it was 24-14 at halftime or something. It could have been worse. Stroud actually missed a wide open bomb that would have made it 31-14 at halftime. And I called this one. I was teasing Mike because I had picked the Texans, Mad Pup, and I'm like, whoever wins a turnover battle here wins a game, and you can count on Flacco for at least two turnovers. And he tried to bet me, and I'm like, I'm not going to give you better odds than you can get on DraftKings or whatever. But sure enough, second half opened up. First two possessions, pick sixes by Joe Flacco.
Back-to-back pick sixes. Like, when's the last time you saw? Like, when's the last? Like, clearly it struck midnight or whatever. Whatever your chariot turns into a pumpkin, whatever Disney
reference we want to throw in.
Like, I know I'm like juxtaposing. You know what I'm saying? I'm mixing them all up. But yeah, the glass slipper or the root, like it all sort of came kind of crashing down for Joe.
Yeah,
like reality. So now maybe it explained why he was on the couch.
I think so.
Right, but C.J. Stroud, dude.
And that guy, I mean, he just continues to impress. So a couple like weird stats on it. So he's the youngest quarterback ever to win a playoff game. He's the highest draft pick ever to win a playoff game in his rookie year. And this one baffled me. Like, he is only the second Ohio State quarterback ever to win a playoff game.
Really?
Is that crazy? Mike Tomczak with the Steelers was the other one.
Mike Tomczak was the last one?
Yeah.
For the Steelers?
Yes. That's crazy when you think about it. But
which is why he went number 2.
Yeah,
because he was an Ohio State quarterback.
Yeah, maybe.
You know?
But yeah, he was like impressive on every level, that every throw, just did everything right. Of course, didn't have an interception, unlike Joe Flacco on the other side, which I again was pretty much predicting the whole week. DeMarco Ryans, I mean, I think, I know they vote for Coach of the Year after, but it was either what's his name? Stephanopoulos.
George Stephanopoulos?
Exactly.
Like the guy who hosts This Week on ABC?
Exactly.
He used to work for Clinton, right? The little guy?
Yeah, that guy, it was between him and DeMarco Ryans, and the votes are already in, but I think DeMarco kind of put an exclamation point on who should have won Coach of the Year.
No doubt. So they got the Rookie of the Year,
arguably Coach of the Year, yeah.
And potentially, if Lamar wasn't really lighting it up during the regular season, he could have been MVP.
Yeah, you could make an argument. He missed a couple games. I think that's what threw it off. But even with missing a couple games, he threw for over 4,000 yards. I mean, I there's not enough superlatives to really talk about him. But the other storyline in this game, though, was just that the Browns' D was just non-existent. I'm like, the number one defense, Jim Schwartz should, get another shot as a coach, and blah, 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 blah. And the young, this young team was, all young receivers, none of which were drafted higher in the third round. Like, just lit them up and down the field. It was I don't know, it was really impressive.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I mean, it was sort of like that was the first game of the weekend, so it was I was just kind of getting my
Just getting
my mojo on, and it was an ass kicking. So it is what it is. I will say, like, I don't know where. So I'm going to weave a couple of things in as we go through the games.
I would expect nothing less.
So the caveman's back.
Yeah, yes, he is.
The Geico.
Yes.
And there was a number of different variations on the commercial of like, oh, they made a punchline out of me. But at one point, I think I texted you and Mike, and I said, like, that last caveman commercial was as long as a documentary. Like, it could have been on Netflix.
It could have been. Yeah. There's probably most of our listeners don't even remember that campaign.
Yeah, no, because the caveman had to be at least like 10 years ago, right?
At least. I think it was
so easy.
Yeah.
And the wife's like, "Oh, what do you mean? So easy a caveman can do it? Don't say it.
Don't say it. They made a punchline out of me."
And then the other thing is, like, even as 10 years ago, beside the caveman,
yeah,
or certainly when we were growing up, the only commercials were for beer, right?
Cigarettes? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, no, well, that was a little before our time, right? But it was like beer and
chips and
and cars,
right?
Like
cars, yes,
like Bud and Ford,
yeah,
right.
Yep.
Now it's fucking there. Any sort of drug that's on the market, Big Pharma's taken over the NFL.
Yeah, and we've talked about it. I just don't know. Like they have like the So we've talked about Jardiance to death.
Yeah, Jardiance is gone. Like Jardiance, she doesn't show up anymore.
But the one that actually makes even less sense is they have like the anti-hot flash pill.
Right, the menopause. That was this weekend. That was the first time.
I'm like, who's watching the NFL playoffs that this is relevant to?
I mean, maybe this is misogynistic, sexist,
maybe,
stereotypical, but like, where's the ED commercials? Like, where do I go to get my sildenafil, the generic version, or what? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, where are they? But the beauty of watching, like, you watch an NFL game, you're fired up, especially if your team's playing, you want to get back from commercial, and they go through the minute of what the thing does, right?
Yeah.
Like, I cut my A1C, I lost 60 pounds, I got GOLO, whatever, all the shit. Right. And then you got to get another 35 seconds of like, hey, if you have suicidal thoughts, or you start bleeding internally, or if there's blood in your stool, or the
perineal fucking explodes.
If you have a burning sensation when you urinate, you mean like, what do you mean, doc? Like fire comes out my dick? Oh, so do you have a burning sensation when you urinate?
Yeah, it's a little out of hand for sure.
But hey, I was fired up to see the caveman back. He looks like he hasn't aged.
He's a caveman,
I guess,
right? All right, you want to go to the next game?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so Dolphins 7 at the Chiefs 26 in the aforementioned fourth coldest game ever, I just knew the Chiefs were going to, and I actually did chalk some of it up to the cold weather, like, the Dolphins' speed will be a little neutralized in that. It didn't appear to be the case on the first drive because Tyreek Hill ran by everyone.
Right.
And of course, he's from Kansas City, so, he's used to playing in that or whatever. But it was just domination by the Chiefs. I mean, the Dolphins kind of, like, I think it was 14-7 or something, but then the Chiefs just ran away with it. And there was one drive that kind of summed it up. I think the Dolphins were, I think it was like a touchdown game, and Dolphins had second and inches. And I mean, even with Ben, but if you want to flash back a little bit, I think they might even run a sneak in a playoff game to get inches. Nope, not the Dolphins. They ended up tossing the ball like 8 yards behind the scrimmage. Someone held. They moved him back, and then threw a pick, and basically the game was over.
That was it.
Yeah, basically the game was over after that.
See, I think I thought even that day it started out well. Who was the receiver for the Chiefs? Was his name Rice?
Yeah, Rice. He's coming into his own.
Yeah, he had a huge game. But
he's had a huge probably a month to 6 weeks. He's
when you get really the head coach, the cool head coach, right, Mike McDaniel.
Yeah.
When he shows up on the sideline, where he's been wearing the cool pants, the yoga pants all year and all that kind of shit. He's been just chill with the cool glasses.
Yes.
And when he shows up like he's looking for a Sherpa in that outfit he wore,
Yeah, exactly.
that just sends a bad message to the team. I think
Like
that's just like,
we are not tough enough
we're
to handle
fucking
this.
uncomfortable as
Right.
all get out here. So I thought that was a big deal. The other thing, how did Andy Reid's mustache get so frozen?
All right. Well, because if you want to harken back to the COVID days, he obviously is the mouth breather. Remember his shield that got all
Right.
fogged up? and
Right.
shit?
Okay. Right. So like the saliva's coming out of his mouth, getting
Exactly.
on the mustache. But was that great that there was icicles all over that stash of his?
I know, that was awesome.
And he wasn't dressed as like
No, he had a
dressed up as
normal jacket.
Yeah,
on.
it was like the Chiefs jacket on.
Exactly.
Right. But the best for me,
Yeah, of course.
you know where I'm going with
I
this
do know
one,
you're
right?
going. Yes.
How many for 2 years I've been talking about Mahomes' helmet, right?
Yeah,
Like get him
yeah.
a real helmet, like
You-
not the Rydell that you get at Dick's Sporting Goods,
Yeah.
like with the Chiefs logos on it.
Yes.
And that son of a bitch. Have you ever seen an NFL helmet crack?
No. So that says how cold it was. But yeah,
Right.
his helmet literally cracked.
But the beauty wasn't so much the helmet cracking. I get it; it
Yeah.
was that cold. But then when they got the backup, it was the same misfitting generic helmet, and
Right.
he couldn't get it to fit.
He
Like,
couldn't
there
get
was
it
like,
on.
there was 5 minutes of adjustments on that helmet, and I felt validated.
I was thinking of you when I saw that too. I'm like, that's gotta be Pino's like best.
I mean, yeah, I was
Tribute.
like, I just felt validated on that one.
All right, so it was 26-7. I'll get some stats out here for those of our listeners that like that kind of thing. It could have been a lot worse. So here are some team stats. This, like when I say total domination, it was 25 first downs to 13, 409 yards to 264. Third down conversions, Miami is 1 to 12. KC was 6 to 15. And this is probably a Chiefs problem for going forward. And then next weekend they kicked 4 field goals. So like it literally could, and some of those were like 20, 30 yarders.
Yeah, Butkus, he like that guy. His legs would fall off. Because wasn't it 2 weeks ago he kicked 6?
Yeah, no, exactly. You're right. So Kansas City in the red zone, which you kind of think they're good, they're not good in the red zone. Not this year, they're not. And then I know the Dolphins had a lot of injuries, but everyone does. It just seems like they just didn't come to play, and they weren't prepared, and they certainly weren't ready to be physical the way the Chiefs were.
Dude,
So
the coach, he sent the message in that outfit.
I think, yeah, I didn't tie it together, but you're absolutely right, man.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
And it seemed to me like once the game started getting out of hand, they couldn't wait to get out of there.
Yeah,
I'm
no.
surprised they didn't send an equipment guy out to Home Depot to get one of those couple Duraflames and a pre-bagged kind of deal of logs and started building fires on the sideline. That's how uncomfortable they looked.
Yeah, they did.
And they were just like, let's just get the fuck out of here.
Yep. And oh, by the way, Taylor Swift was there.
And, okay, so I was going to go there. If I gotta see the
Yeah, in the
with the mom, with the Kelsey mom,
in the heated suite, by the
yeah,
way.
I mean, enough already. Is she going to go to Buffalo?
I would imagine. I don't know. I mean, she'll be on national TV yet again, so I would
Right.
assume the answer is yes.
Unless the Grammys are on or something like that I don't know about, which I don't think they are.
No, I think that's a weekend between Super Bowl or.
Oh, that Bills
Championship.
Mafia go off on her.
Oh yeah,
They better close the windows in that suite.
They
There's going to
bet-
be snowballs.
I don't
and
even think they
drinks
have
getting
windows in their suites in
fired at
Buffalo.
Yeah. And by the way, it's always the Kelsey mom chilling with her.
Yeah,
And I know they have a dad. And
I assume
think
so.
he's alive.
I've never seen him.
And I don't think the parents are divorced. Like, is he pissed? Like, hey,
He's like,
What about me?
Exactly. Wait a minute. Where's my coverage?
what about you get the old white-haired lady in every shot and every commercial?
Where's my chunky
Right,
soup commercial?
Because I know she's going to divorce me and keep all the royalties.
Oh man. All right. So that was Saturday's games.
And I do one more thing on that one.
Yeah, go.
What is it? GHIA Stadium
Yeah.
or GHAI?
Something like that.
For years, I've been I'm like, oh, Gia Stadium. And
Yeah.
now I realize whenever they talk, like Jim Nance is always
Yeah.
like, we're at GHIA Stadium. I'm like, oh, you just say the initials.
Right.
You don't have to come up with a word for it.
All right. So let's move to Sunday's games. First game on Sunday was the Packers 48 at the Cowboys 32. And again, this game wasn't even that close. The Packers scored on 6 out of the first 7 possessions. We're up 27-0 at one point in the first half. We're up 48-16 before they got some garbage touchdowns at the end. And before we get into the Cowboys and what all that is, got to give credit to the Packers. I mean, you knew they would play loose because they're just playing with house's money at this point. But Jordan Love, you know what? Yeah, he's the real deal. We've been saying it for a few weeks. God damn them! They were smart enough again to do it. I think,
dude. They may have gone back to back.
I know. Honestly, like again, it's a relatively small sample size, but he's doing it week in, week out now. It's really impressive. I mean, he was nearly perfect until like the end of the game.
He was. I think there was one drop. Like, yeah, he was perfect until his last pass.
Right,
and that's the thing. Like, so it's a small sample size, what have you. And I consider him a rookie.
Yeah, well, it's his first year.
Right, his first year playing. I know he's been on the roster.
Yeah,
for
but he only had one start before this year.
So. But when you what do they say, the quote unquote eye test? And I'm not talking about eye discipline or
exactly.
Looking with your eyes or using your eyes or watching the play with your eyes, because I don't know how else you watch it. But just the way he throws the football, even like when he's rolling off his back foot and all that kind of stuff, and he just drops it right into a basket.
Yeah, he looks, he reminds me kind of Pickett, and only this regard.
Excuse me, I'm gonna have to call bullshit, right? Like I'll let you go a lot.
Let me.
It reminds me of Daniel Jones.
Let me finish. In only this regard, he's very slender and. In Kenny's case, he's very frail. Jordan just stands in a pocket and just has the arm strength is just impressive as hell. Just
arm talent,
whatever you want to say. But the key to that team over the last probably month has really been Aaron Jones getting healthy. It still kind of runs for him when he's healthy.
Yep.
And I don't know, he had 118, but he probably could have had more. It's just like the game was over. I don't even think he played the fourth quarter.
Like a blowout. That's why I think I texted you and Mike, and I'm like,
right.
Hey, is Belichick on a plane to Dallas right now?
Exactly.
I think I said that in the fourth quarter. In the third quarter, I think I texted, is Jerry going to fire him at halftime?
Exactly. So all right. So let's go to the Cowboys. So clearly just not ready to play at any level. CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott were absolutely. I mean, I think they Dak ended up throwing for 400 yards, I think, but it was just garbage time. And CeeDee Lamb and him were just like, how are you not on the same page? And your 18th game of the season, the whole first half, they just weren't on the same page.
That's what I was going to say. They've already played 17 games together, and CeeDee Lamb has had a huge season.
Yes,
right. Sound like Jesse Raphael?
Exactly. I lost my glasses. I lost my safety goggles, as Carl Elliott would put it. I lost those in New York.
Oh, just bust the balls. Break the balls. Like they were in the huddle, like looking at each other, like, what the fuck you do? Like, and as is in the NFL, with the receivers being divas, quote unquote, it was Zach doing all the talking. I didn't even see CeeDee Lamb responding.
Yeah. Yep. So the memes coming out of this were great. I think one did have Jerry with his phone. He's like, "Who's he texting? Belichick?"
Right. That's it. Yeah. No, that's what I was like. Is he on the plane to Dallas
exactly. Right now? And then there was a couple like my favorite was Prescott with he just pulled some baked goods out of the oven. He's like, "Turnovers, anyone?"
All right. Yeah. Who was the DB? Savage?
Yeah.
That had that just jump that CeeDee Lamb. And CeeDee Lamb wasn't even really running a route, it didn't seem like. It was kind of jogging like a half-ass kind of in or whatever you call it, post or.
So I think I texted you. I might have been Nev, but I'm like, I think CeeDee may have gone to the White House last night.
Yeah.
He just was not all there. So here's another interesting tidbit about this game. So the Cowboys had won 16 straight games at home, 16 straight,
and they've rolled at home
and rolled all the time. The Packers had never lost in AT&T Stadium.
Oh, I didn't know that. So something had to give.
And in fact, now have more playoff wins in AT&T Stadium than the Cowboys.
Oh shit!
How crazy is that? By the way, it's including the Super Bowl that they beat the Steelers that they shouldn't have. But anyway.
All right, yeah. Still haven't gotten over that shit.
So McCarthy, is staying. Again, I was at the top of the podcast. I kind of said you should feel good about that as a Giants fan, but
after a 3-hour meeting with Jarrah,
and Dan Quinn's their defense coordinator, and if you look at the body of work, obviously he's done well. But he let up. I mean, it could have been 60 points he let up if the Packers didn't get the pedal off the gas. So if he doesn't get a head coaching job, which I think this would give people pause, at least in some respects, to hire him. Do they bring him back and just run it all back with?
I think they probably do.
That's crazy.
And my thought, and I think I don't know if I texted it, but I definitely thought it toward the end of that game, because was it the Packers that put it back? Like they took Love out of the game.
Yeah,
and then they had to put it back in because like Dallas scored a touchdown, and it was like
right.
Guy Lafleur was like, "Hey, I might have got a little too confident," but I was thinking, or I texted like, "How is Dan Quinn still the hot head coaching candidate after this performance?"
So that's what I mean. Maybe
and his last head coaching gig when they blew that lead in the Super Bowl, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
He may want to flip that hat on forward.
Exactly. Yeah, but all right. So the Cowboys won 12 games, 3 seasons in a row, and never made it to the NFC. They did win a playoff game, but they never made it to the championship game. That's the first time that's ever happened. So at some point, I don't know. It just seems like they're just, if you know Cowboy fans well, Nev, Bomber, they were like, well, it's been the Jimmy Johnson curse, and they finally put Jimmy Johnson in the Ring of Honor, so the curse is lifted, and turns out that wasn't it.
Right, but even though, like, my boy Bill Salen, it just had the same exact mentality as Nev D, where he's, like, talking to him during the year. Like, I'm not even going to get fired up about anything until they win a playoff game.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the thing so McCarthy keeps his job. Jerry's going to run it back. It makes sense because Jerry could control him. Jerry could still do the pressers.
Yeah,
he couldn't do that with Belichick or Harbaugh.
So exactly,
right?
exactly.
Okay, so
I
those
think,
guys are probably not even on the table.
I think that says a lot, though. I mean, and maybe that's why they're
right. Well, there's only one constant in the last 30 years when they haven't won anything, and it's Jerry.
Right. That's a fair point.
But the other piece of it is that we're at the beginning of the year, and maybe it's because they opened against the Giants. Their defense was so dominating.
I know. Yeah, I don't.
And as the year went on, they couldn't stop. I don't know if it's injuries or it's Dan Quinn or whatever, but they couldn't stop anyone. You could run the ball on them.
Yeah,
you could throw the ball on them.
I think injury wise, they were spared more than most teams were.
I mean, they had the one dude you can hang his hat, like he had 6 pick sixes.
Yeah,
right.
Yep.
But that's it. That's the only thing that was good about that defense.
Yeah, I agree.
And like Micah Parsons, kind of was a non-factor. Just like they didn't even call his name.
I know. I don't remember. Yeah, exactly. All right. So, Packers are the youngest team ever to win a playoff game. First 7 seed ever to win a playoff game, since that's only been a thing for a couple of years. But anyway, Packers are playing with house's money even more so next week. So we'll get into that in a minute. All right. So the game of the weekend, at least in terms of storylines, was the Rams at the Lions. And it lived up to its billing, man. Holy shit, man.
Eminem was in the house.
Eminem was in the house. Kelvin Johnson was in the house. Barry Sanders was in the house. I mean, it was like, and that place was rocking as it should be. They haven't hosted a playoff game in 50 years or whatever it's been. So, and they held on. They beat the Rams 24-23. And it was a great game from start to finish. And again, the best storyline of the weekend for sure was Matt Stafford going back to Detroit to play against Jared Goff, a quarterback that the Rams gave up on,
who was unceremoniously dumped by
exactly
McVay,
who was who was actually an afterthought in that trade. If you remember, they got
it was like draft picks and money and everything.
It was 2 draft picks, money, and Jared Goff.
It's like, hey, we're gonna get a quarterback back, so we may as well give you ours.
Exactly. So the stadium was just fun to watch. Like the fans be that into it. they even had this. I don't know if you heard this. They had this thing where if you wore an old old Lions Stafford jersey, they would exchange it.
Yes, I did see that. I did see that
for a new
right.
golf one. So that was kind of cool. And ticket prices were like insane. And you know what? It was good for the city, and it did. We didn't plan this, so I'm going to throw this one at you. But do you remember how much of a ghost town Detroit was when we went there?
To Kidapalooza?
Exactly.
Yeah, half that downtown was boarded up.
Exactly. So I mean, I guess the town's come back a little bit if they can afford $500 seats to get.
Yeah, it's like a little revitalization.
Exactly, to get into the game.
Now do you think Kid Rock will be there this week?
I would think so.
He's going to have to leave Nashville.
Yeah,
I don't see how he doesn't go to that game.
Yeah, I would think he would have.
Eminem will be back.
Yeah, definitely. So
driving down that 8 mile.
So we talked about it, but it was the golf in Stafford kind of show, and golf was like almost perfect. You got to say. I mean, he was 22 for 27, threw for 277, and they jumped out to a pretty commanding lead. I think it was 21-10 before the Rams scored before halftime. And Stafford, you know what? I've been impressed with him this year just because he's playing with a really young team, and he's out. You can talk about Puka Nacua and everything he's done.
Well, that Puka Nacua guy, he sucks.
but
that guy's a beast, man.
Unbelievable. But a lot of that has to do with Stafford, obviously,
right?
And but the thing that we probably haven't talked about on the podcast, but I kind of have noticed, and you had to notice this game, was his toughness, man.
Yeah, he's a tough son.
Oh my God,
he's a Texan. That's for goddamn sure.
He had like a bloody hand at one point after hitting a helmet.
He had a concussion.
I'm shocked they let him back in the game.
You clearly saw when he went down, his head, back of the head hit the turf.
Yeah,
his eyes.
Yeah,
or up in top of his eyelids.
Yeah,
and the fact that he did even go out for a play.
Yeah, no, he did. He went.
Okay.
That was a third down, that was a third down. So
his eyes looked as bad as Tua's fingers last year.
He went to the blue tent a couple times.
Yeah,
in this game,
there is no way he didn't have a concussion.
I know, but he kept playing through it, and again, he played well. It really came down to the red zone. I think the Rams had 3 short field goals in the game, and the the Lions pretty much scored.
I think even in this game, didn't our boy Dan Campbell go against his, what do they call it, his tendencies? I think he kicked a field goal.
Oh, is that right?
At one point on
he didn't go
down.
for fourth down?
I think he kicked a field goal.
Oh my God!
I think the kicker was like, "Whoa, where's my cleats?"
And you know what? But to your point about his aggressiveness. So here's how the game ended. There was 4 minutes left.
Yep.
The Rams were actually in field goal range. They got a holding call and then turned it over on downs. And the 2-minute warning was there. I can't remember how many timeouts the Rams had, but they had at least 1 or 2. And instead of running the ball on first down, again, Dan Campbell, Riverboat Dan, or whatever you want to call him at this point, threw it on first down to St. Brown, and first down, game over. So that was a gutsy call in and of itself.
It was, right, because it would have stopped the clock. And wasn't it because, like, before that 2-minute that play you're talking about, McVay decided to punt with like 4 minutes left in the game, give or take.
Yeah,
thinking he'd get the ball back and get a couple timeouts.
Yep.
And with their play calling and their players, Detroit just ran out the clock.
Yeah. No, it was again, Detroit. I mean, we've been singing their praises and then saying maybe they're not real. I've vacillated on them, but it's exciting to watch for them, the whole town. It's hard not to like Dan Campbell.
Yeah, how do you not like that guy, right? Because he is who he is, and he means it.
Yeah, no,
which I dig.
That's right.
And I think so. I have one note I do have, dude, and I don't know if it's because I didn't write down his name and I forgot who it was, but there's a cornerback. He might be a Lions corner.
Okay.
Or maybe he's not. I don't know, but he played this weekend. And dude was selected as an All-Pro.
Okay.
This year, but didn't make the Pro Bowl.
Yeah, I don't get
like, isn't that ass backwards? Like,
yeah.
All-Pro's hard, like first team All-Pro.
Yeah, that's
and you don't make the horseshit exhibition game where you play dodgeball where everybody plays?
So that
Like Daniel Jones is probably going to wind up in the Pro Bowl by the time it rolls around.
I'll go one further. So I guess there's a semi new one. Maybe the first year was last year. So the NFLPA has their own all pro team or whatever. And
is it separate from the regular all pro?
Yeah. And somehow TJ Watt didn't make it. So I don't know.
Are you kidding me?
No, that's serious.
That's racist.
So I don't know if I trust the voters, to whoever they are in that one.
But the normal Pro Bowl vote, like that's been something that, it's a level of esteem. Like
right.
You're an all pro, that's a big deal.
Yeah, all pro is definitely a big deal.
Pro Bowl is like nine guys at your position
right.
opt out, and then you're a Pro Bowler.
Exactly.
So I don't know who he is, but as a cornerback, he may be in Detroit. But they're easy to root for.
Yeah,
for sure. And I'm definitely rooting for Jared Goff.
Yeah, you got to. I mean, and he's
put up with a lot of shit.
Yeah, and he's led this team, obviously. I mean,
and he's not whined. He's not always just head down and work.
I agree.
I wonder if he still thinks the Earth is flat.
And it's talking about karma. So now that the Cowboys lost on that bullshit call, if you remember Dallas a few weeks ago, now Detroit hosts another playoff game. So that's kind of karma at a high level for sure.
Yeah, and if you would have told them that they're getting 2,
exactly,
and if the Packers go in with House's money and upset the 49ers.
And then they get 3.
Detroit wins. Could you imagine there's an NFC Championship game in Detroit?
No one would have signed. No one would have bet on that to start the season. That's for sure.
We'd be like Jules from Pulp Fiction. Oh, that's it. I'm fucking going.
All right. You want to move to Monday?
We got a taxi driver there. Could hook us up.
You want to move to Monday?
Yeah, go.
All right. Steelers and Bills finally got it on. In Buffalo, which, so we should talk about. Did we already talk about this? I think we talked about before the podcast.
But the game being moved in the snow?
No. The fans trying to get to their seats, and like literally, there's just piles of snow.
Like they have the ones that didn't bring the shovels.
Yeah, exactly.
And could you imagine letting fans into an NFL stadium, especially Bills Mafia, with shovels? Like, did they take them?
That's what I was wondering.
Did they confiscate them when the game started?
I was wondering if they let them in or they gave them to them. They got in, but either way,
I guarantee they all look different from what I saw. Like they took them out of their garage. But what I want to know is, how violent shit can get during an NFL game?
Yeah, like with shovels,
right? So did they confiscate did the Bills organization confiscate the shovels
after they had
as the game started? Right? But yeah, that guy and I think it was like 2 kids. Walking down the aisle to their seats with snow up to the dad's knees.
Exactly.
It was like you walking down Corniche. Whatever that's called up in Mammoth.
Oh, man. So they finally played a game. Bills won 31-17. As a Steelers fan, I was not surprised. I mean, the Bills have a better roster and obviously a ton of home field advantage, blah, blah, blah. What I was surprised about was yet again, we're down 21-0 in a playoff game. And I'm like, how do you not have like any game plan, any answer to stop that? And some of that had to do with turnovers. Some of it had to do with Josh Allen doing Josh Allen things, but it was 21-0. We had turned the ball over twice. And then they actually made a fucking game of it. So
they did.
I was actually really frustrated because
if they didn't start out so shitty, right?
Exactly.
Could have been a game.
And they made it. So I'm proud of them in that respect. Like they actually got within a score in the fourth quarter, late third quarter. It's 24-17, fourth quarter, I think. And then they let up a 80-yard drive by the Bills and it was over. But and Mason Rudolph played okay. He made the big mistake. He threw an interception in the end zone, which wasn't a horrible throw. The DB made a really good play, but obviously that was a killer in a game like that. But he did look a lot less confident. Like I heard someone talking about, he was locked in on his receivers, and I kind of went back and looked a couple of replays. And he was like, he didn't go through his progressions this game. I don't know if it was just he didn't want to make a mistake or whatever, but he didn't play with the same sort of.
It wasn't free. He would my take on it was how we talked about, like, hey, this guy played with this team or this player's playing with
Right.
House's money, right? While he should have been playing with House's money because they got in,
Right.
he just lost it all on the last hand.
Yes. Okay.
And he only has $10 left.
That's a great analogy.
So he's got, like, his sphincter is just begging for a 19, right?
Yep.
But I'll tell you what, dude, that touchdown run by Josh Allen.
Yeah.
I mean, you talk about beast mode.
So
right?
I think Romo or Nan said it, like any other quarterback would have slid like at the 30, and he didn't. Which again, I agree with all of that, and he made a great play. But the Steelers' tackling was atrocious. At one point, Jim Nantz says the Steelers' tackling just has not been very good tonight.
Oh, really? I didn't hear that.
Fucking understatement of the century. Like, Jesus Christ. But yeah, give credit to the Bills. Josh Allen didn't do his turnover fucking thing, and if he plays like that, they're gonna go to the Super Bowl.
Right.
And I mentioned at the top, Tomlin's back, which I guess is a good thing. It just seems like we're needing a change. We haven't won a playoff game in 7 years.
I heard you say, I guess that's a good thing.
Because it's just
the
like
standard is a standard.
I know, but like the standard isn't like, like right around 500,
right? And then
getting
making the playoffs and not winning a game, or
not only not winning a game, we've gotten the last 4 playoff games, we've gotten blown the fuck out.
Right.
I'm like, it hasn't even been close. So credit to him for getting us there, but like, I don't know, like, and in this game, the Bills only scored 31. They could have scored more potentially. This is we let up 45, 48, and 42 in the 3 before this. So something's amiss there. And
what do you think the issue is?
I think they need.
It's not special teams. We know that.
You hate to blame injuries, but like the fact that the Bills tight ends had a field day over the middle of the field is just they're playing inside linebackers that were on the couch.
Right, and TJ Watt didn't play. So we're now 1-12 without him. So it's like. So yeah, I didn't expect much, and I'm actually happy they made a game of it. Ton of questions in the offseason. Like I think they already said Pickett's the quarterback. No. Yeah, I read that today. He's QB1, but with competition. So who knows if that's Rudolph, because he's a free agent. And if I was him, I'd explore every other option. I'd get out of there.
Yeah,
right. Because if he did what he did, to win those, and he played well in those 3 wins.
He did.
So do you think they like trade for like a Justin Fields or try to sign a Kirk Cousins or draft somebody, or are they going to camp with who they got?
No, they'll probably. I guess it kind of swings on Rudolph. They will get rid of Trubisky for sure.
Right.
But yeah, it probably depends on Rudolph. And then no, I don't think they'll do the big thing. That's not the Steelers' way,
Right.
So
do they have a do they have a permanent offensive coordinator? Or are they going to
they already said they're going to look outside the organization, which is like part of the problem. They need to look outside the organization. All right. Next game. Final game
was the last one of the weekend.
Yeah, Super Wildcard.
Super duper.
Eagles 9 at the Bucks 32. Baker Mayfield, you gotta give it to him. And we didn't do we probably were remiss in not doing our year-end awards last week, but I think he's probably comeback player of the year. I mean, I know everyone wants to say what's his name, Hamlin from the Bills, just because he suited up, and maybe that is enough. But
no, that's not enough.
but Baker is like, it's hard to argue with what he's done this year, man.
Right, and I don't care if that division sucks or whatever. He won a playoff game
exactly
against the defending NFC champion.
Yes, that's right. So Baker was amazing. 337 yards, 3 touchdowns. And
that one receiver, I forget what his name is. He was like, when he made a catch and like took off to the middle of the field, and scored a touchdown. I'm like, boy can run. Like I want to see him and Cheetah in a 100-yard dash.
So I was gonna say that like that. So that was that was when you kind of said, I think the Eagles gave up.
Right. Oh,
because there wasn't really a lot of physical,
no interest in tackling. Really.
Exactly. So the Eagles, I mean, it's kind of amazing. Like when they were 10-1, and everyone else said they still haven't played their best football yet. And I think I actually said, like, what happens if they have? You know what I mean?
Right.
They're barely winning games. They shouldn't win these games, and they are. And I'm just like kind of baffled by what happened to their defense. I mean, their defense was, year over year, their defense had 70 sacks last year. They had like 30 this year or something like that. They were stout against the run. You could run all over them this year. It just, I don't know, just weird. Like,
I have a theory.
What's that?
Oh, they gave the DC role to old number 2 Ticonderoga. Matty Patricia.
But that was a Hail Mary to solve things.
Like mid-season changing the defensive coordinator, but keeping the old defensive coordinator on the staff.
Yeah, that was
like Sirianni has made like so many crazy kind of decisions. And I think what summed it up, when's the last time you saw a tight end other than Jeremy Shockey?
Yeah.
In 2000. But there was a scene on the sideline where, what's his name? Goddard? Is that their tight end? The Eagles tight end?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Getting up off the bench and yapping at like Jalen Hurts.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah. And the one thing about Jalen Hurts, I know everybody and he just sat there like this.
Yeah, no, he has the weird.
Like, you got to have some kind.
Yeah,
like Patty Mahomes.
Like, get off
when
the
he
bench
needs to get fired up.
Exactly,
he gets fired up.
Rally your team,
yeah.
man.
He's a little too cerebral.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we said the same thing
about
that
word. Did I just use it?
Do you know what that means?
No, I don't. But I'm using it in a sentence.
Eagles didn't have AJ Brown this game, which I think was a big miss. But again, they were just.
They also didn't have anyone who could tackle.
Exactly.
I think that was a bigger miss.
So, and the interesting thing in this game was even the tush push didn't work. Did you see
that?
Right,
yeah.
So
there was I think there was a face mask on the tush push.
Is that right?
But yeah, it didn't come close. Like, that's when you knew.
Yeah, you knew that. Once they didn't get that, it was definitely done.
But fly, Eagles, fly, man. That's all I could say.
Yeah, that's just so you're right. Going back to the top of the podcast, how do they keep him? I mean, that's like I don't know. I guess it's just because they were 10-1 and they have a great roster and they'll run it back.
But run back what? Like, so he lost his coordinators last year.
Right.
And they clearly were a big part of their success.
Yes, that's for sure.
Right. So now he's going to have to, and he hired the 2 coordinators, now 2.5, because he gave Patricia the job. Right. And I think I might have said this on another podcast. What is Patricia doing with the number 2 pencil when all the play cards are laminated? Like, you cannot write on a laminated something with a pencil. You need a Sharpie.
Yes, yeah.
Right? But so they let him. He lost his coordinators. Everyone said, "Oh, that's probably a big deal."
Yeah.
He hired 2 coordinators, put Patricia on the staff. That wound up being 2.5 coordinators. They're going to need 2 coordinators again. So are they going to let him do it again?
That's the question.
Based on the way he fucked it up so bad. And so I think what I read today, dude, was that Sirianni was meeting with Lori today.
Yeah.
I mean, he's going to be gone tomorrow.
Yeah, maybe.
He can be gone by the time we're done.
I was going to say we should check the breaking news.
But and it would not surprise me. And if there's, again, I think we said at the top, if there's anyone deserves it, it's him.
Yeah. All right, so that was Super Wildcard weekend. Entertaining games for, as I said at the top, various reasons. So that sets up a divisional round with some interesting storylines, I suppose. So you want to get into that?
Let's do it. Yeah, I just hope the Caveman's back this week.
All right, so I think
I want to say one thing about the playoff schedule this weekend.
Yeah.
Are we going to get early games again on the West Coast?
I don't think so.
Because I have lived out here way too long
to wait till I agree with you. I was on the East Coast this week. You should have wait until 5 o'clock for a fucking game.
The fact that I had to fucking wait till 1:30. I'm used to waking up at like 7 on a Sunday and putting on like Game Day Live or whatever it is on NFL Network.
And your day just starts.
Exactly. And I put on YouTube TV at 7 this weekend, and they're replaying games from the prior weekend. That's how far away we are from kickoff. And I'm like, the fuck am I going to do to 1:30? How many bagels can I eat?
I did get reminded this weekend of I think I watched at least 2 games in bed. So like
Right, they were that late,
they were
right?
that late on the East Coast. It's like crazy.
Yeah, like because I think we're talking about I think on the me, you, and Mad Pup chain,
Yeah.
Going back and forth on a game, and you hadn't responded, and Pup said, "Sean's on the East Coast. He must be in bed." Yeah, could you imagine going back to that?
No, not at all.
Like watching a Monday night game
No.
and it's 11:30 and it's still not over.
Not at all. Not at all. I'd have to take a nap.
Although I forget, I think it was a comedian or somebody or some sports guy talking about like when we were kids.
Yeah.
Like remember how it used to be like there was only one game a week, right? On like the Monday night
Right.
game, and that's the only place you could find highlights.
Right.
And
right.
just begging your parents, can you stay up till halftime?
Right. That's right. Crazy.
All right, we'll go into this week's game.
All right. Texans go into the Ravens, into Baltimore, and Baltimore's 9-point favorites. Listen, the Ravens, again, there's a theme through all these games. The Ravens have a ton of pressure on them because, listen, they haven't won a playoff game in a while. They certainly haven't. The last time they were number 1 seed, they lost at home. Texans are a confident team. I don't think they win, but it wouldn't shock me if they kept this close, at least a touchdown game. So
I think I read something where C.J. Stroud has as many playoff wins as Lamar.
Yeah, I think that's right. So, yeah, I don't. Again, I would be surprised if Texans won the game, but I can't imagine they're going to be, blown out by the Ravens.
I don't think they will be. I think they could win I think it. Yeah, I guess I'd be in the same boat. Like, I'm not going to say they're going to win the game.
Right.
Certainly wouldn't shock me. And one of the reasons being, reading the New York Post this week, Odell has been on some podcast just chirping about, like, the Giants fucked him over. And then I read today he, had an extensive conversation about the boat trip before the playoff game.
Yeah, no,
lost,
I remember.
Right,
yeah.
Green Bay. And it's just like that kind of juice is just not good.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah. I hear you. So anyway, I think the Texans keep it close, but the Ravens win.
They don't lose by 9.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think so either. All right. So again, playing with house's money and who the pressure's on. Packers at the 49ers. 49ers are 9.5-point favorites. The pressure's on the 49ers. I just and the Packers obviously played well, but at some point I just feel like, all right, they're going to be like, yeah, we did good enough this year.
Right, yeah.
So, and the 49ers are one team that just don't take their foot off the gas. Like, they have a killer instinct. So I think the 49ers actually cover that at home.
Do you? I don't know. Like, because my thought on that game is that as great as Purdy has played, and at various points this season, he was in the conversation for an MVP.
Yeah.
I think he's the wild card. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I hear you.
Pressure.
But he seems to handle it really well every time.
Yeah, I mean that's true. And I don't know that the Packers defense, even though they got turnovers against Dallas, I don't know they're that good.
They're not a good run defense, and obviously the 49ers.
Right, and you got the 49ers defense basically playing against a rookie.
Right. So anyway, that's
9.5. You're going to lay the 9.5 on that one?
Yeah, I'll lay the 9.5 on that one.
Check out Maddog.
The Bucks at the Lions. Lions are 6.5-point favorites. And I'm on the Lions bandwagon at this point, but so I'm picking the Lions. But that was such an emotional win last week. You know what I mean? So it wouldn't surprise me if there was a letdown and they either barely win the game or they could lose the game. The Bucks are playing really, really well.
So what's the line on that one?
6.5. 6.5. I'm picking the Lions, to be clear, but
I wouldn't lay the 6.5.
I am.
Are you really?
Yeah.
You're aggressive this week. Right. But the big balls on Brad.
And so I don't know if you caught this today. So CJ blah 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 Gardner Johnson.
Oh yeah, he talked a little shit.
So he came out and said, "Yeah, I just don't think the receivers are that good." Gage, he mentioned Gage, I guess is the point of the story, And they asked Baker that, and he's like, well, I think he should do some more film study because Gage hasn't played it down for us all season.
He's like, yeah, we like Gage. He's a good player, but he hasn't played it down for us all season.
So I thought
he goes, unless he was watching like some preseason stuff.
Exactly. So I think Baker handled it well. And if they're, I don't know why like you would start talking shit, but anyway.
Don't poke the bear.
Exactly. And then the final game of the weekend, which will definitely be the
as they say, the marquee game,
the
Nance Romo game.
Exactly. Chiefs at the Bills. Bills finally get them at home. Bills are 3-point favorites. Bills finally get them home, and I think we forget how bad the Chiefs were playing before last week.
Right.
So I think it's a Bills time.
It's the first road playoff game in Mahomes' career.
Yeah, that's right.
Mahomes and my auto.
Josh Allen will do Josh Allen things. The Chiefs defense is good, so I could see Josh Allen doing a bunch of stupid shit and turning the ball over once or twice, but I just think they have too much talent for the Chiefs, and again, we kind of forget how bad the Chiefs were playing, except for last week. So I'm not saying the Bills will blow them out, but
they'll cover.
They'll cover, and they might blow them out. So that's
all I know is I hope for the Bills Mafia's sake that there ain't 16 seconds left in that game.
Exactly.
And Mahomes gets the ball.
They will
do something.
They will take a knee at the one and kick a field goal or run it in, one or the other.
Run out of the back of the end zone for safety.
All right, man. That's what I got for this week. What do you got? Anything?
That's
you want to empty your notebook?
Oh no, the notebook's empty. I want the caveman back. I want some ED commercials. And I really want to. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I would agree.
And then it's weird. It's so weird because usually, and it'll be interesting to see what happens this week once candidates can interview in person. Because usually, like, a guy gets fired, the next day they're introducing a new guy.
Right.
And so now we've got a week. It's like, hey, this guy. You think Harbaugh's going to the NFL, by the way?
Who?
Harbaugh.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah, 100%. Probably to the Chargers. But
you would think.
Yeah. I mean, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
If you could take your choice of jobs, why wouldn't you take that one? All right. Well, until next week, Pino.
Then we'll see you next week after the divisional round.
The divisional round.
Shit's starting to get real. Oh, there's one thing I wanted to ask. Have you seen, and it wasn't in my notebook, it's in my, it's all up there.
It's all up there.
You by any chance didn't happen to see, you know how on NFL Prime, the pregame show, each city they're in, they send Marshawn Lynch out somewhere?
Yeah, I've seen that.
Did you see him when it was Beast of Wall Street?
No, I
for
did
the Jets game?
I did not see that.
To anyone listening to this, I would highly fucking recommend
it. Go to YouTube.
I won't do it justice, but he went in there.
All right.
And he's got like the Gordon Gekko brick cell phone. And he's like, I got my briefcase. And then they showed one scene where he's around a phone bank at the stock exchange. And he's pulling phones out the wall. Sell, buy, sell. And they let him ring the bell.
Yeah.
And he's like, ring. And she's like, and the lady's like, okay, that's enough. And he's like, all right. Does it again. Only time in the stock exchange history that it's been ranked twice like that. It's the funniest thing I've ever seen.
All right. Well,
so that's my recommendation.
I was going to say the Maddog and Pino recommendation.
Little comedic relief.
All right, guys. We will, and gals.
We'll see you next week. We'll see you Tuesday. We'll be early. We'll be back on track.
We'll be on our normal, regularly scheduled slot.
All right. Peace out.
Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the show. And follow us on social media to stay in the loop with all things Maddog and Pino. Until next time, keep those ice cubes jiggling.